Hello, this is DanielPlays. My name is Daniel and welcome to yet another Minecraft video. So due to high demand, I'm going to be bringing you a video in which I tell you step by step how to configure your Minecraft video settings, what settings are best for low-end PCs, how you get the most FPS out of Minecraft, and how you can reduce lag overall. Now do note that you can also install Optifine on top of just vanilla Minecraft to make the game run even better. I'm not going to be doing that just yet because Optifine is not stable enough for that yet. But in this video, I'm going to be just showing you how to configure your vanilla Minecraft settings and getting the most out of your vanilla Minecraft experience. A quick note before we get into the video, if you're into Minecraft videos like these and Minecraft videos about shaders, texture packs, and even Minecraft survival videos, then be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. And without further ado, let's get straight into the video settings. So there's one other thing that you can do to actually boost performance, and that is allocate more RAM to the game. In order to do that, what you're going to want to do is launch Minecraft, go into installations, look for the profile latest release, assuming that's what you're using, then look for these three dots, click it, click edit, and now you're going to see something like this where it says edit installation, and you're going to want to click more options, scroll all the way down, and then you're going to have this list of weird looking Java arguments. So we are only going to be changing this first argument here where it says XMX2G, which literally means the maximum amount of RAM that is going to be allocated to Minecraft. So for me, it's defaulted to 2 gigabytes, but if you have more gigabytes of RAM available, then of course, just increase this. So if you have 4 gigabytes of total memory in your system, then I suggest just leaving it at 2. If you have something like 8, you might be able to go up to 4 gigabytes. I have 16 gigs of RAM, so I can easily go up to something like 6 and not even feel a difference. So if you're done configuring this, be sure to just hit save. And then the next time you actually launch the game, it's going to have a lot more RAM available. So now that we've allocated more RAM to Minecraft, it is finally time to take a quick look at all of the video settings that you can optimize in Minecraft. Now to go to your video settings, just go into the pause menu, click options and video settings. And now this is the menu that we're going to be optimizing. So the first setting here is full screen resolution, but this is actually the last setting that we're going to be taking a look at because it does something totally different to Minecraft than actually changing the way it looks and works. So the first setting is Biome Blend, and I have it disabled at the moment. I do want to show you real quick for most of the settings what they do so you can actually decide for yourself if you want to leave them enabled and not get the extra FPS, or you actually do want to disable them and think you don't need them. So Biome Blend is a setting that causes biomes to blend, literally. So for example, the grass in plains is pretty green, and over here it's a lot less vibrant because this is technically a different biome. So you can clearly see the line here, you can clearly see that this is one biome and this is another biome, and to be honest, that doesn't look very natural and it doesn't look very good. So that's why there is Biome Blend. Now if you enable this setting, you're actually going to notice that instead of a hard line, there's going to be more of a gradient transition between biome colors. So you can barely even tell that there's a hard line between the biomes here, which looks very natural, but it costs a few extra FPS. So if you disable this, Minecraft is even going to tell you that this is the fastest option. Now graphics is a pretty straightforward one. Graphics is literally graphics. So if you set the graphics to fancy, you get fancier graphics, obviously. Things like trees are going to be transparent, and there's a couple more. Now there used to only be 2 settings, but that's why I'm making this update video. There's actually 3 settings now. There's also Fabulous, which does a few things that are hard to notice, but should be visible. I haven't spotted these just yet, and some other YouTubers are also wondering what this setting does exactly, but for this video it's not very important because what we are going to be doing is just set it to fast, which will, for example, remove the transparency on leaves, but in return will give you a few extra FPS. The next setting is smooth lighting. Now it doesn't affect performance that much. It will actually look a lot better, I will admit that. But if you go ahead and disable this, set smooth lighting to off, then that is going to make sure that there's nothing actually extra that's going to be taxing the system. So the next setting is a very interesting one. It's called VSync, and what VSync means is that if you enable this setting, if you enable VSync, your game is going to run at the exact same refresh rate as your monitor. So if you have a 60 Hz monitor, you're only going to get a maximum of 60 FPS. For example, you run Minecraft at 200 FPS, but you have so many lag spikes. That is one of the only exceptional cases in which VSync actually helps, because it can reduce the FPS to 60 and make it more stable. Apart from that, do not enable VSync, because overall it's just going to make Minecraft less responsive, and it's going to make it feel even worse actually than it already is if you have low FPS. Now GUI Scale is completely up to you guys what you prefer. I like to set it to 2. Feels like the default setting. I think it is the default setting. It doesn't change performance, so don't worry about that. Same goes for the brightness. It literally just changes the brightness. So we are done there. It's just very simple, very straightforward. Now this next one is actually pretty important. If you've always been running Minecraft in windowed mode, it's time you consider running it in full screen mode, because full screen mode actually allows your computer to allocate more of its performance to just your game. So running Minecraft in full screen mode is actually better because your graphics card doesn't need to show you anything else but just Minecraft. Now this next setting is one of those settings that for some people seems to actually matter. For me, it doesn't matter anything. It doesn't make my game run better, nor does it make it run worse. I have tried messing with this setting, but as soon as I set it to some other setting, it usually just crashes my game. So that's why I like to leave it at 4. It doesn't really do that much, doesn't affect performance that much. If you really are desperate and need some extra FPS, be sure to just fiddle around with this and see if actually setting this to some lower setting works. Now entity distance is pretty obvious. It's one of the new settings in 1.16.1 and 2 and 1.16. What it actually does is it's the distance at which entities are rendered. I believe it's like dropped items and maybe even mobs and minecarts and stuff like that. So if you want to see as many minecarts, mobs, dropped items, everything as possible, set this to 500%, because that means that they're going to be rendered at a very far distance. By default, it's set to 100%. And actually that should be fine for most PCs, but if you are having problems running Minecraft, then of course set it to 50%, which is the lowest, and that will give you the best FPS. Now the next setting, render distance, is probably the most important setting in the game. You know what? It's actually the most important setting ever. What render distance does is literally tell Minecraft how much work you want your PC to do. So I currently have it set to 16 chunks, just to give you an idea of how far that actually is. It's this far. We can actually see quite far away, so that's what 16 chunks give you, but of course that means lower FPS. So if you need more FPS, I suggest starting off with something like 6 chunks, which is still going to be very playable. I mean, look at this from the ground. This is actually very playable. Now if you still need more FPS, go ahead and try something like 4 chunks. This is going to reduce the view distance by a lot, and it's going to make Minecraft, well, still very playable, because I mean, imagine there was a creeper right there. You could still see it. You could still see them. They wouldn't even be able to see you just yet, I think. But then there's people that have such an old potato that maybe they might need to reduce the render distance to 2 chunks. And that's going to make the game look very weird in my opinion, because you can barely see anything. It is going to run very, very smoothly. When I switch to 2 chunks render distance on a high-end system, man, I'm going to get hundreds upon hundreds of FPS. But on my school laptop, which I use to test all of these settings, this actually works a charm, because it doesn't even have a GPU, so it really needs all the FPS it can get. Now the next setting is only important if you want to reduce your frame rate. So if you, for example, get 200 FPS but it's very unstable, it stutters a lot, you might want to reduce this. So it's almost the same as VSync. VSync just caps your FPS to what your monitor can show you, and this one is more of like a manual FPS cap. So for example, you disable VSync, then you can manually select how many FPS you want Minecraft to show you. Now, if you have a low-end system, usually you just want to set it to unlimited, because even if you have a low-end system, you want as many frames as you can possibly get. So just set this to unlimited. So the next setting is view bobbing, and what it literally does is enable or disable the walking animation on your screen. So it will wobble a little bit just like that. Your hand will shake a little bit. It'll feel a little more natural. If you disable it, you will just walk in a straight line. Your hand won't shake, which is not very natural, but it might give you some extra FPS. My personal advice on this setting is just pick whatever you like, because for me, it's never even made a single FPS of difference enabling or disabling it. The attack indicator is the same, it's just preference. Wherever you want your attack indicator to be, crosshair, hotbar, disabled, it doesn't really affect your performance because it's such a tiny little thing on your screen, it can barely ever cost you FPS. So contrary to the previous two settings, view bobbing and the attack indicator, the last three settings actually do matter quite a bit. So the clouds, it's pretty straightforward. If you want fancy clouds, you're going to get less FPS. If you want them entirely just disabled, you don't want any clouds, just disable them, you'll get more FPS because your game doesn't have to think about the clouds. Fancy clouds will look like this. I'll actually have to up my render distance a little bit to be able to show you. That's fancy clouds. You know, they're blocky, they're 3D. Fast clouds are just flat, but they're still clouds. And if you turn this setting off, there won't be any clouds. So the best setting obviously is turning it off if you want the maximum FPS. Same goes for particles. It's pretty obvious, although particles were optimized a long time ago, they can still cause massive FPS drops if, for example, you're launching massive amounts of fireworks at the same time, or it's snowing or raining maybe even. Particles should just be set to minimal if you want the maximum amount of FPS. And now entity shadows is a pretty important one because it's shadows. So for example, an entity shadow will appear when I drop my sword. Disabling this will give you a few more FPS because dropped items will no longer have a shadow. So the last setting that we were going to be taking a look at was the full screen resolution. And actually, if none of these settings were actually helpful, I have to mention that I should set this to 2 chunks again because these are the best settings that you can possibly get in the game. If none of this actually helped and you have a pretty big monitor, you can always try the full screen resolution setting. What this will do is run Minecraft at a very, very low resolution if you set it to something like 720 by 400. It's gonna look really weird, it may look really stretched, but this will give you a massive amount of FPS. This might get your FPS from like 60 in 1080p to maybe 500 or something like that if you run it at this low of a resolution. So this is what the game looks like now. It looks really, really weird. The quality is very low, but if we take a look at my FPS, you can see that we're rocking 500 FPS, 504 FPS. I think if I look down, I might even get more. Well, it's going to be hovering around 500, but that's pretty insane. So that's what that last setting can do for you. My mouse can barely even keep up with this because I just move it a little bit and it goes all the way across the screen. But that is one of the last resorts, obviously, if you really are having trouble running the game. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down below in the comments how many FPS you managed to gain using the tricks that I showed you in this video. If anything was unclear or you have any questions, be sure to just drop them down below in the comments. You can also join our Discord where there's a lot more people to actually help you out when you run into just problems. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, then be sure to smash that thumbs up. If you want to see more of these kind of videos, then of course, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. And without further ado, as always, I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!